tired of Biden and Trump. 10% of swing state voters are backing RFK. He was watching a debate, and he actually liked some of the things that you said. I don't know if you saw when he was commenting.
I didn't see that, no.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts about him, and who does he hurt? What does this say about today's election? Is he a modern-day Ross Perot, or is this a complete different case study of an independent candidate?
So I like his spirit. I like a lot of the spirit I like is the willingness to challenge the establishment in what was his own party. I think his commitment to speaking about topics that the Democratic Party doesn't want him speaking about. And I think of all of the other candidates, I mean, I don't think he has offered the clarity of exact foreign policy that I have, if I may say so, and I don't know that he's in the details on this stuff, but his instincts are at least understanding that World War III is a really bad option to the United States. So I appreciate those things about him. We have some policy disagreements, and those are less important than what I'm about to say. I mean, he has in the past, I think, said things like, and maybe he doesn't mean it anymore, but he has said things like people who spread climate disinformation should be put in jail. Look, I think the whole climate change agenda is a hoax. We can have that discussion, and let alone, even if you didn't agree with that, the answer to speech you disagree with is not censorship. And on a good day, RFK knows that too. You know, he believes in affirmative action and racial reparations. I'm against a lot of that. I think it's divisive. It's toxic. So we have our plenty of share policy agreements, but at least I think his heart is in the right place. And he's somebody who is unafraid to challenge orthodoxies, and I respect that about him. I just wish he wasn't so scared of me.
Why do you think he's scared of you?
Oh, I mean, the number of networks. I mean, if the dates work out, you could actually offer him the same thing. I mean, I can't tell you the number of podcasts, networks, et cetera, that have said, hey, would you have an open discussion with RFK? And I said, absolutely, I would do it. And every time he backs out of it. And I think that, look, I think that if somebody sees the way that I'm going after other Republican candidates on the debate stage, I actually that would not be my treatment of RFK. I think we would have, in a different format, more of a conversation like you and I are having. And so I think that I could understand why if somebody's building their brand, they don't want the anti-establishment sheen to wear off if you're getting, called out. But my goal wouldn't be to call him out on this stuff. We have some disagreements, but let's have and I think he's probably the one person in American politics, and I actually put in some sense Donald Trump in this category too, but that's about it, who you can actually end up having a conversation that's unscripted. And you could actually be much more mutually respectful about your disagreements. And so, I'd pledge to say that if he, manned up and agreed to one of those things, my goal would not be to play gotcha with him. I mean, here's just a fact of the matter is that different people are different leaders of different styles, right? I can't speak for him, but he's not in the details, right? In terms of domestic policy or foreign policy or the how. I'm a CEO by nature. I enjoy reading these books and things like this. And so I am a details guy, but my goal will not be, to the extent that part of his concern would be because I'm in the details, play gotcha games with him. That wouldn't be the point. The point would be to actually have a conversation that advances true discourse in the country in a way that challenges a bipartisan establishment that's by and large equally corrupt. And I think he gets that, and I respect him for that. But I think that, if he's running to be president and this man wants to, and I don't think he thinks or anyone thinks he's going to, I don't think he believes he's in this to win. I think he believes in this to move the conversation. But if he's running for president, you want to sit across the table from Xi Jinping and you're an advocate for free speech, I haven't been the one, it's been networks that have repeatedly been pounding both those. Every time I say yes, and every time it's, oh, he didn't want to do it. And I think that that's a little bit unbecoming of him because this is a guy, I love the fact that he's fearless. Go all the way with being fearless. And that's what I would say. And so maybe he will. And so I want to give him room for that. But that's all I would say is
I'm sure he's disappointment. He'll see this.
Who do you think he helps?
He's a good dude. He's a good dude. And we have our disagreements, but my only advice to him would be, if you're going to be a free speech guy, go free speech all the way. Don't do this climate change, misinformation, censorship garbage.
If
you want to practice free speech,
give credit where credit is due. Vivek makes some good points on Ukraine. Glad to see some of the awareness of the Republican Party.
Who do you think he helps or hurts?
As a little bit of an
Vivek.
It's a little bit of a light touch understatement there, because I think the good points on Ukraine is we got to go deep into the details, and it's not just on Ukraine but broader foreign policy. But he's a thoughtful guy, and so I think a lot of good would come out of an open conversation. But I just think if you're running for U.S. president, this applies to me, applies to everybody. Hold me to the standard. Call me out if I'm not doing this at some point too, right? And I get it, because my sense is if you look at people who are running his campaign, you got a lot of swamp creatures from prior Democratic establishment campaigns. And I have, I get this. If you're surrounded by an establishment that can still shave off a little bit of the edge, I'd say bring back the inner you and let's actually lay it out on the table. And so, yeah, if you talk to him, I would just, my encouraging, the thing I would do, and I've talked to him a couple times this campaign, I think that, he's doing a lot of important things.
You guys have spoken?
Yeah, we've spoken a few times. Yeah. Yeah, and I told him the same thing when I talked to him too, is practice what you preach when it comes to free speech. And free speech is about a culture and an example that you set for the country. Barry Goldwater, I think, was it him and JFK, whoever it was? I mean, they talked about potentially flying around the country on the same plane, do Lincoln Douglas style debates. I mean, that doesn't happen in this country anymore. And I think there's an opportunity to set a good example, but you got to man up. And there's some risk involved in every conversation you have. But you got to take that on in a way that advances the interests of the country. And if you want to sit across the table from Xi Jinping or whoever else, I think you got to show the people you're fit enough to sit across the table from somebody who has different opinions than you and may have different knowledge base than you. And that's a good thing if both people are approaching it.
I think if there's a leaders bulletin and who has agreed to face off anybody the most, anybody, opposing, supporting, anybody, you're number one, okay, in that. I think number two would be RFK, and then it's just everybody else is going to become. I give DeSantis credit for being here. Haley didn't want to be here. We invited Nikki Haley. She didn't want to come and talk on a podcast and doing long form. I don't know if she's done any long form podcasts herself.
It's all going to be pre-vetted, pre-scripted. I'm sure there'll be a lot of rules. You have to send the questions in advance.
And by the way, to give credit to DeSantis, nothing was off table. They just said, hey, ask the questions.
I do give credit, because especially for a guy like him where he's not naturally comfortable